Welcome to the Humnava Podcast with me, Haroon Rashid. Today, with the mastermind behind all of Humnava, Xulfi. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you, Haroon. I am great. Amongst the mountains. Yeah.
How can you... sorry for interrupting you, but I was going to say, what a stupid question of mine, because how can you be anything but great when you're surrounded by this?
If you surrender. A lot of people will come to the mountains and will just have a tour or a trip over here. But when you are in nature, then you have to be a part of it. And that needs surrender. So then everything goes away. And especially when you're here for something like music, you have to surrender. There has to be no ego, there has to be no differences. And magic happens only then. So this is the perfect stage, perfect place for actually people coming together and connecting without any toxicities and ideas of differences. Just coming together as wonderfully diverse people, making art together.
And I think you've done that so beautifully, because I've been here for a few days and just meeting people from all different backgrounds, all different cultures, people with different experiences and languages, all united under these mountains with music is just the most majestic idea. So,
Isn't it? Yes.
Where did the idea of Hamnava come from for you?
Oh, that's such a long story. Since I started doing Coke Studio, I was an outsider when I did it. I'll be very honest. And in a way, I used to think about ideas and initiatives, just, sitting in my room or in my studio and thinking about things which I felt a lot of people felt are impossible. But for me, I don't know, because I was an outsider, I did not think of what is happening currently. I always thought of what could be. What could happen? What are the possibilities? So for me, I kind of put the word impossible aside and started thinking about building worlds. And that's what I did in Coke Studio. My idea was not to just make songs, but my idea was to make worlds in which people can be themselves. A stage can be a people for maybe an Atif Aslam, maybe Rahat Fateh Ali Khan, and all those big names. But when you are working with a more diverse set of people and younger lot as well, maybe stage is not their story. A world in which they can be themselves and express, that is their story. And if that story is authentic and represents them, people will connect to it. So that was just my kind of initial thought. This is what I want to do in Coke Studio. When that happened, I understood there is more power to it than I thought. People being authentic is the most powerful thing, because people being authentic would mean people are being sensitive. They are not afraid. Fearless people express better, and especially in an artistic environment where they also know that even being vulnerable is a superpower. And that is how you make great songs, when you're vulnerable and you express your heart out. And then I saw the power of those songs, those music. I saw it transcending everything. Nothing mattered. No political differences between countries, no color, no race, no religion, no ideologies, nothing. When it comes to music, everything is bypassed and you just fall in love with it. If it's a nice song and you connect to it, you just fall in love with it. You wouldn't want to know the nationality of that song, right?
Absolutely. I think we should contextualize for anybody watching this or listening to this as well, that you were the producer and creative mind behind Coke Studio for the last how many years now?
2 seasons.
The last 2 seasons. And those 2 seasons have given us songs like Tu Jhoom, Thagiyan, Basuri, Blockbuster, Jhol. I could list off everything, but we'd be wasting time here doing that. But the point is that each one of those songs that I just mentioned has brought a uniqueness, a freshness to the landscape of music, not just in Pakistan, but internationally. And some of them were songs that maybe on paper weren't meant to do that as well, and they still did. So you said that was almost the planted the seed of authenticity for you, but you could have just continued doing that. You didn't need to create Humnava.
Because I felt that it's just a start. Coke Studio has been a start of a very amazing story in which, yes, we have entered the global charts. And at the same time, we have also realized the power of music, as I said. Power of music is such that it kind of helps you surrender, right? You fall in love with music, as I said, with the song, with the artist, without knowing the nationality of the song or the artist, right? That is what music does. When I realized that, I felt that if music is something that can sync everyone together, then that's the way for the world to be a better place, no?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Because with music, we'll be sensitive. With music, we'll be more understanding. With music, there'll be hope. So I couldn't just stop at Coke Studio. I have to create more hope in today's world, which is so out of rhythm.
But you said you were an outsider and you did Coke Studio not realizing the potential of the power of authenticity. But because those songs became such huge successes, each one of them, and there's so many more that are coming to my head even now, like Beach Hut, which is an outstanding song and a fusion of genres and artists as well, so many. But because they became what they did that not come with a pressure to take less risk almost and know that you have an audience that has an appetite for a certain style of music, and going beyond that might backfire in some way?
Are you talking about Coke Studio?
No, I'm saying generally making music as a whole, because now you're making a different sort of music, but not a different sort of music. You're making music for a different platform, but you're creatively free, but you have a reputation of making quality music.
Okay. I think we underestimate the audience. I'll be very honest, right? Even I remember when I was doing Coke Studio, season 14 and 15, there were a lot of voices around me as well who did not believe this is kind of music which will work today, right? But again, as I said, I'm an outsider, and I am blessed that I was an outsider. I was not impacted by a lot that was happening, which had become the norm. So I was operating outside the normal. And that kind of helped me do things that I felt will work. And that's where the belief comes from. We underestimate the audience. Audience is ready for a lot of different emotions and expressions. And right now, the world being in such a vulnerable place, people need to express through art, even by, just performing or even by listening. Listeners are also evolving. That is why they embrace diversity like never before. This is a very interesting time for the whole planet.
I think that you brought a certain amount of purity back to music as a whole, and that's not to take anything away from music that's been produced on platforms previously, because we've all loved and enjoyed that as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I think when you hear the songs that you've done for the last few years, there is a purity and an essence of almost peace within them. Even if the genres are more upbeat, there's an optimism within your music that you can hear through the songs. And
it's nice.
And I think that's why maybe some of the songs that you've created that maybe even were seen to be more niche in their genres or styles still managed to resonate with someone somewhere. And so I think what Humnava is almost a culmination of all those learnings from the last few years and lifting them away from a social construct that will in some way try and bog you down with certain parameters, and lifting it and bringing it here to the middle of the mountains.
That's very well said, by the way.
Thank you so much. But you tell me, that's my assessment of it, but please tell me how true that is for you.
I wouldn't say Coke Studio has a certain amount of pressure. I make music there with the thought of just expressing wholeheartedly, right? And my intent here and also in Coke Studio has always been to create a space where people can be sensitive and vulnerable. That is why it comes out the way it comes out, right? For Hamnava, the idea stems from a space which Coke Studio has helped me understand, which was the way music can create bridges. And I'm repeating myself, but I think it's important here. Irrespective of religion, irrespective of race, color, ideologies, political differences, music creates a bridge. And this is what I felt when the season got released, and the kind and amount of love that I felt from around the world. For me, it was a complete surprise, right? So my mind started thinking, at that time only, if music has such power, then we are not doing enough, right? Hamnava, who are Hamnava? Hamnava are people who sit behind the kavals. So what they are doing is, if you think about it, they are keeping the kawals in rhythm.
They're almost propelling the kaval, right? They're the
Yes,
pillars.
they are the
of,
pillars.
Yeah.
They are keeping the kawals in rhythm. They are keeping the kawals in sync. And they are the pillars. They are supporting, they are encouraging, they are empowering. What does the world need right now? Rhythm.
Empowerment.
Empowerment. A safe space where we can express as well.
But the pillars are crumbling down all around the world.
Yes, absolutely. That is why you need Hamnava.
You know, because what you've just said is so powerful, what you learned from Coke Studio in the last few years and the confidence it gave you to do something like Humnava is contradictory in the wider scale of things, because the world is more divisive than even the last series that released of Coke Studio. So much more has happened. There are wars that have happened. There are absolute atrocities taking place in communities all around the world. Not far from here even, you know?
Yeah.
You know, and so do you ever wonder if the audience's appetite for peace and unity has reduced in any way? And the reason I ask you that is because even people who were liberal, open-minded, for peace and harmony a couple of years ago, I've seen a couple of them convert to the dark side, you know? And
It's funny, but that's the truth as well. It's so weird, and it's sad, but it's funny at the same time how things are changing. But I just feel that as an artist, I need to think the opposite. I need to think that if there is toxicity in the world, my work and my reason for existence is to balance it. More toxicity, more wars, more battles, more music, more art, more hope, more love, more bridges. That's it.
so Hamnava essentially is a collection or collective of artists and musicians from not just Pakistan, but internationally as well, bonding over music as a form of unity and expression. But it is probably, and you can tell me better, one of the most challenging things that you've ever done. Where does this land in the scale of Xulfi challenges?
It is a big challenge. I will admit to it as well. But everything in life, if you want to achieve something, it can't be smooth. If it's too smooth, it's not.
Well, let's list the
not worth
challenges.
it.
Let's list the challenges. The first challenge is it's a brand new platform. Nobody knows anything about Hamnava. The first thing is getting people to actually listen to the music, not scroll past it on Instagram. Be bothered to go onto Spotify or YouTube and watch the video and listen, right? So that's the first challenge.
Absolutely.
You're confident that that challenge will be overcome?
I think good music will reach people.
Challenge number 2, we are in Gilgit-Baltistan, in Hunza. It is a huge task to get here from within Pakistan, let alone from another part of the world. You've overcome that challenge. How was that?
I think it was needed, this challenge, because if I had to collect so many people from the world to, have to be in a certain place, this is it, because whoever you are and however you are, this place will force you to surrender. And you cannot collaborate. Like, there are strangers coming from all over the world. Yes, music is a bridge, but still, there are strangers coming from all over the world and collaborating here. So you need the help of nature to somehow, nurture this in a way where there are no egos. That is why this place, you will surrender here. There is no other way. We were jamming here one day, I remember, and it was very sunny on that day. We were jamming for a song, Holoyor. It's one of the songs of the season. And somebody just made me notice, look outside. And on a sunny day, I saw the most beautiful rainbow I've ever seen in my life.
Wow.
Right? And it kind of,
touches you.
Yeah, and also, I'm the kind of person who believes that if you surrender, there'll be signs.
So do you think people overcomplicate making music? Because we're in a room right now which is well insulated. There's rugs everywhere. It's almost optimum for recording sound in.
Yeah.
But you're recording in outdoor spaces where...
They're also optimum. See, what is an optimum recording? Or a space. The people over here, if I ask them to record in a studio versus if you see them perform in outdoors, where do they perform better? Outdoors. Because
Nature.
And they are nature. People in Hunza are nature. Nature is not something they look at like a thing of beauty only. They are looking at it as if it's part of their community. So they are more comfortable there. So if you are in a place where you can express yourself better, where will I get the better recording? In the mountains.
Yeah.
So for me, the first step is to get the real recording, to get the authentic recording. If I put these 4 walls and I ask people to perform inside it, yes, I might get a cleaner recording. But in all honesty, in today's world, we can get cleaner recordings even in the mountains. We have the technology, we have the equipment, we have everything to create and achieve that. Then my priority would be get the real recording, get the authentic recording where it is easier for the person to be himself or herself. So that is why the mountains.
So this is why I asked you, do you think people overcomplicate making music? Because the other thing that I've learned, even in the last couple of days that I've been here, is that people in Hunza know how to do more with less.
Yes, beautiful. That's true.
They know how to do 10 times more.
Yes, with less.
With 20 times less.
Yeah.
And I just wonder if, because Hamnava is such a holistic experience, right? It's not just about the music, it's about the way of life that we are showing through this medium as well. And I wonder if, despite your incredible learnings already, if you've also learned on this journey about how to adapt.
When I came here 2.5 months back, I was on the mountains, I slipped. So I realized, okay, I can't really, I'm braving it, but I'm not ready. So when I went back to Lahore, I went on a journey in which I strengthened myself for this place. And I realized it's not just for this place, it's for my own good. So this place does this.
It makes you resilient.
Absolutely. And that was important for me, that experience that I had 2.5 months back to understand this. And again, it's like these things, it's a philosophical answer, but for me, my heart, I feel these places kind of call me. And I'm helpless. That is why the Hamnava's first chapter is happening in Hunza. And I have been, so blessed as well, because when I came here for auditioning 2.5 months back, Haroon, I saw people singing beautifully in English, in Urdu, in their languages, Waki, Burshuski, Shina, everything. And there is no other place in Pakistan in which people naturally sing so beautifully in multiple languages.
Yeah.
If you see the people, how they sing Urdu here, their talaffuz, their accent, pronunciation, to my heart and in my opinion, it's far better than most parts of the country.
And it's so interesting, right? Because they are bilingual here.
Yeah.
Most people here are bilingual, and particularly younger people here and the ones that you're working with, their English is also perfect. Their English is perfect.
Yes.
Their Urdu is perfect. I don't know about Brusheski and about the other languages. Like I don't speak them, so I can't assess them. But they can do all of them effortlessly.
Yes, yeah. And I think it's because they live in a pure environment. Because see, in cities, we live in manufactured environments. We are surrounded by manufactured things. In fact, right now, we are also surrounded by a lot of manufactured music. But come here, it's just the opposite of that. So if you're evolving or growing in a place like this, your norms will be different. Your ideologies will be different. And that kind of helps you to do what you're doing over here.
Do you think all those learnings, the surrendering, the resilience, the strength building, do you think all of that has helped you tap into a part of your creativity that hadn't been exposed just yet?
Yes.
In what way?
You are touching a topic which is... So I wear this watch, Whoop, right? So I was in a jam here. And it was a very soft songs jam. And when I went back to my room, so the app said that it detected an activity. And when I saw what it did was, it detected a zone 2 cardio. For
The heart rate was...
But the interesting thing was, I even went to zone 3, I even went to zone 4. I never felt it. But I was going there. And then again that happened. And then again that happened. It kept on happening. And I haven't felt like that. I have felt bits and pieces of that in my career. 100% I would have, but I did not have this to know that. But here, in mountains, I felt it very wholeheartedly and even scientifically. Interestingly, this, even if it's a cardio, next day I woke up the freshest I have ever woken up, with high recovery.
So it's so strange, right? Like when you do cardio and you're on the treadmill, you're exhausted after.
Exhausted. I wasn't.
You're rejuvenated.
Absolutely. Even the stat that showed on my app was like 80% recovery, 90%. And even on gym days, the next days, I had never had that recovery. But on gym days plus days where I am here curating music, it was 80 plus.
Wow.
So for me, I have never, said this in an interview. I don't give a lot of interviews as well, but this just happened over here. And that has kind of, it has taken me on a different journey of what I'm feeling and how it impacts me.
So how do you process that in your creativity? Like, how does that show tangible results? That ability to unlock a part of your mind or your spirit that has not had the opportunity to express. How do you pour that into the music here?
When we are in that room, Haroon, I don't have to try doing that, honestly. Ask anybody, even who have come from abroad, when they have entered this room, what they have felt. They just feel like plugging their instrument in without any introductions and just being part of the whole process. So there is some energy over here that, I don't know.
There's a serenity in the air.
Yeah, and where people are kind of, easily vulnerable. I don't know what other term is, but for me, just working with people, making music with them, making art with them, and people who have come from different backgrounds, they're all, these different stories. When these stories come in a space where they know that they can express themselves in a way where the story matters as well, it is a kind of recipe happening or a kind of magic happening that you cannot really put in words or in a process. You cannot list it down. That's what happens in a real jam. That's what happens when all these stories collect. This is what this room has done, and it makes my job easy, honestly. And then we are all synced, Haroon. And you can see it in the jam room. Anybody who has seen the jam happening here, in 2 days we were completing a song.
Wow.
That's not easy. We had some foundations, but the way everybody contributed to it was not like, if they have come from some other space. Even if they have come from some other space, here they have surrendered. Here they can contribute with their hearts. So it's the space as well.
You mentioned people coming in here and just plugging their instruments in and joining in. That requires extremely careful crafting and hand-picking of artists and musicians to join Humnava. Because if you have even one person who's not in sync with the vision and the pace and the style of this, it could throw everything off.
Yes.
So talk to me a little bit about the process of selecting the people that are part of Humnava. Because I've spoken to some of the singers, I've spoken to many of the musicians as well, and you can definitely tell that they are all on the same page. So how did that happen?
When we started thinking about Hamnava, and, in a larger team, started talking about it as well at Giraffe, Sherry and I started scouting for talent. Sherry is, my co-curator in this as well, for the music part. And then we started looking at different kinds of musicians from different places. But we centered on a certain idea, and that was, let's get people who have been buskers or who are buskers. So buskers are people who are comfortable playing on the street. I just thought that, maybe people who are playing on the street, and it's just an opinion, will just have less judgment and will just have less biases. And also, they will be more adaptive to things happening around them. They will be more sensitive. Because on the street, you have to grow and evolve and play parts on the go.
You also have to be egoless.
Absolutely. No biases, no judgments, egoless, right? So very well said. So I said, let's get those people so that your first step is kind of accomplished. So you are selecting people who already have an experience of letting go.
Yeah.
So when these people come here in this environment, it becomes easier again. So yes, there is a bit of science to it, but it still, begins from a very emotional space.
sorry to interrupt you there, but I feel like music widely and in the mainstream has become purely for the purposes of playing for the gallery to a large extent, that you only sing when someone's listening.
Yeah.
You only create when there's financial reward involved. You only work with another person if there's something in it for yourself.
Yes.
And I've noticed in my few days here that nobody cares.
Absolutely.
Nobody cares about the money.
Yes.
Nobody cares about the who's listening. I walked into this room just a little earlier for a different episode, and there was two singers. There was Aryan and Maheen, and there was Lena and Peter and Blaze, and they were just jamming. They were just making music. It wasn't for one of your songs. It wasn't because anybody was listening. It was just because they wanted to.
Yes.
Where do you get that now? You don't.
You don't. And that's the process to make music now. If you want music that can actually... See, people are also kind of getting bored of how music is being done nowadays. There is a little case study that I want to, express. You know Kavish?
Yeah?
Wonderful band. So their first album I think it released in 2007 or 2008. So in last season of Coke Studio, they had a song called O Yara. And it was a collaboration with Abdul Hannan. So when today's generation, they started they discovered Kavish through Coke Studio, the younger lot. But then something interesting happened. They went back. They wanted to see where this band has come from. And then they heard their album from 2007. And they fell in love with that. And then Kavish started performing these absolutely beautifully simple shows, which is just about music and performances and art and singing in a space which is not manufactured at all, even an emotional space. And they had full house shows. They are still touring. Now they are touring the world.
I think sorry, go ahead.
The appetite for music is also developing now. Music that's simple and music that's from the heart.
Do you think simpler melodies or more stripped back arrangements are working better today because life is so complex otherwise?
I think now, with so much music happening and a lot of music which is very manufactured as well, it's now easy to identify it. And even if you notice, all the music that is manufactured, it has an expiry date.
Yeah.
You know it's going to be, it will diminish in some time. And maybe it will have a lot of views and everything to begin with, but then again, it just, fades away. With music that's timeless, and I gave the example of Kavish as well, that has the power, even after 18 years, almost 2 decades, to attract an audience of today.
Yeah.
Because in all honesty, the lives that we are living, there is so much noise and toxicity around us that we need to experience something that can help channel our emotions and make us calm as well. That is why a lot of music is now going back to being melody-centric. That's the truth. Throughout the world, it's becoming simpler. There was a time when, we were using all these electronic elements like there was no other way to do music, right? But today you see all over the world with even people in the West, the way they are making their albums, they are going back to those authentic, real sounds of the drums and the guitars.
Or just
and
your
other
voice.
Instruments. With just the voice, it's not that processed as well, right? And even songwriting, everything is going back to a time which we feel now is a simpler time.
Obviously, you have the freedom and the privilege to make whatever music you want, right? You're not really, and particularly with Humnava, because it's a fresh platform and a fresh beginning in a way, you can do whatever you want. But do you understand why other artists have to make music to fit a certain style or pattern? And actually, what would you say to those artists who feel bogged down or almost, annihilated by the system of what they have to make?
Honestly speaking, I'll tell them not to bow down to what's happening around them, Because sometimes the company you are in, it kind of influences you to go in a certain direction and make music of a certain kind. And then you lose yourself. You have to make the music that you believe in, that represents you, right? You don't have to change. You have to evolve, correct, but you don't have to change. So I will say that. And I have said this to a lot of musicians that I've worked with as well. And for example, right? Not a very exact example, but when Manu came with Jhol, I always felt like Manu is meant for those kind of songs. When he sings melodies in his voice, there is some charm that is very unique and very, unique to him. But he mostly used to make music which goes into the rap territory and everything, and that's a discovery process. You are always going through that. But for me, it hit me more when he is into melody. So that is why when I heard Jhol, I was like, yes, I want to do it. And in all honesty, there was not a lot of positive noise around my decision. But I said, this guy's songwriting with this melody is a winner. I felt it, and because it's simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who do you make music for?
I don't know, man. Who do I make music for? Oh my God. I don't know.
Because the way you speak is like you make music for yourself. That nourishes your own soul. But the way it connects with a huge number of people. So I wonder, do you have that in mind when you're making? Or you just said like when Jhol came to you, or when you were putting Jhol together, that there were people who were naysayers around you and almost, whatever, they were giving you some sort of commentary on it, but you went ahead with that decision. So that's what made me ask, who do you make the music for?
I know where the question is coming from, but I don't know how to describe it in words. But I have started believing that if there is something that moves me to a point of vulnerability, to tears, to goosebumps, I need to kind of surrender to that moment. And let's see where it takes me. So for me, it is that feeling. And I then probably go into a process of giving honesty to that song. And I do not then think it is being made for people, or it is being made for me, or it is being made for the singer. It's just a process in which everything comes together to create truth. And then it's not up to me if people will like it or love it, but it's the truth. So that's the process.
Who is Humnava for?
It's for the whole world, entire planet, for everybody. And that's, I think that's my process for even Coke Studio as well. I make music for everybody. I wouldn't call it masses. I wouldn't call it or classify them as Gen Z or millennials. Nahin. It's for everybody. And this actually takes me back to the Coke Studio meeting that I was having with the global team at the time of season 14. They asked me the same question, that who is this music for? Are you tailoring it to a certain audience? And they also kind of maybe felt that, it should be tailored to an audience which is younger and everything. And I was like, no, it is not for anybody in particular. It is for everybody. But then they said, how do you make music for everybody? I said, I don't know. Because if you, honestly speaking, get the story right, then everybody will resonate it at some point in time with it. If it's honesty and truth, people will understand it at some point in time, even not at the time of release, but after some time. But if you are lying, people will know this too.
It's so important. It's so good that you mentioned this meeting that you had with the Coke Studio global team, because when you do Coke Studio, and here's a big difference between Coke Studio and this, there is an entire infrastructure of, for a lack of a better word, quality control, or some sort of system that's filtering whatever's coming through and processing how it's going to be made and whether it's... I know you have the final say, but there are other stakeholders involved in that process, right?
Not really, Haroon.
No?
No.
So even this meeting that you had, for example, when they're asking you who's it for...
And then they gave me the freedom.
Okay.
Yeah, so they did not ask me why you're doing this song or this song and how you're doing it, what are the genres, who are the artists. It's not really like that. For me, at least, these 2 seasons. Otherwise, Coke Studio was supposed to be, mostly big established names.
Yeah.
But look at 14 and 15.
And how many new
People
names
had
have come out of that?
debuts in it.
Yeah.
And then the people who have had debuts now have, mashallah, careers.
Yeah.
So, and I come from a point where I used to do Nescafe Basement, which was another show. It was for the underground musicians, the new ones. So they did not stop me like this. So Hamnava is not different in that regard.
The reason I ask you this is because in this room that we're in here and with the artists that are here at Humnava, because you're bringing so many different worlds together, different cultures, different styles, different instruments, you could be overstimulated with the possibilities of what you could create.
Yes, you're right.
So how do you contain that within something?
That's not easy. That's not easy, and that's the process I went through. Because there are few things that kind of then, sway me to a certain side that this is what I want to do. And then I realized that it's just me, that yes, I'm loving it as an experience. But what's the timelessness in it? If you're doing something, then I, go back to the drawing board. I start thinking again. And we have even rebooted songs in these 14, 15 days that we had. So, yeah, it's an ongoing process for me in that regard. I have to, again, let go of myself to make a decision. I have to surrender. Even if I am liking something, it's not important that this is it. If I'm dancing to something, it's not important that this is it. I have to go deeper and deeper and deeper when there are so many other parameters involved as well, so many other musicians involved as well. So yes, I've been through this process. It's not easy. But this is what I know. In every song that we have done here, every musician and every artist in it is absolutely perfectly matched for that. And again, it's very difficult to put it into words, but there is this song, there is a cello solo in it, right? And I see when they are performing, they kind of just lose themselves. The cello
Lena?
player and Lena and Blaze, they're performing together. So the cello solo, she loses herself in it. And it's a song about loss. Loss of a companion, a partner. Loss of nature as well. That's also a loss, right? Which is right there in front of us.
So prevalent here with climate change, yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, right? The way she was playing in it, it felt like it's a perfect match, even though she did not understand the language. So music kind of speaks in a certain way in which you don't have to have words for somebody to get that idea and put themselves in and just be a perfect match. And you know it then.
You know, the reason I ask you who Humnava is for and about curtailing the kind of creative freedom with all of the endless possibilities is because Humnava could, for some, feel like a privileged club of music enthusiasts who are in their own little bubble and are making music for themselves and, come from an artistic expression that a lot of people can't relate to. And actually, that's the opposite to what this is, isn't it? So Hamnava is for everyone.
Absolutely.
The music is for everyone.
Yeah.
It is as accessible as anything else, but it's made in an environment...
So, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. So, I have always believed in that when you're making music and if you want it to have an impact on societies and communities, it has to reach people. It can't just be an abstract thing for myself, which I can love for the rest of my life. If you have to influence communities in the positive manner, then you, through art or through music, you have to create songs, right? Songs which can be in people's playlists, songs which have repeat value. The challenge for Hamnava was how to create that balance. You're right, we're not creating Coke Studio. There is a very different set of people who is involved in making it, right? So how do we do that? I feel somehow this world has given us the palette to do it. The times that we are living in, the simpler times that we want to go to, the simpler melodies that we want to go to. This place has simple melodies. You hear them, you fall in love with them. So you have the foundation of beautiful, simple melodies, of beautiful, simple voices. That's your attraction point number one. You get that. You get all these amazing musicians, buskers, without judgment, without ego, and putting themselves in. You get a new layer over that charm, which like exponentially improves and increases the charm as well. So we are creating a new genre over here, if you ask me.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct. I do want to ask you, how do you feel, or how fulfilling does it feel even, knowing how much this entire thing means to the local Hunzai community? Because I was earlier speaking to two of the girls. Last night I was speaking to Nurima as well, Fahim, who's from here, who's one of the singers. There's so much gratitude for the fact that Hamnava has come here, for the fact that they're able to be guided or mentored by somebody like yourself. How fulfilling is that for you?
Haroon, I feel it should be a norm in every nation, that you're going to these places and you're working with musicians. I'm thankful that they are showing gratitude. But music should be experienced, and it's not something that people should be thankful to you for doing it with them. It should be something that people experience as collaboration all the time.
But elitist snobbery exists in music. If you work with an Abda Parveen, it's very unlikely that you will come to the mountains of Hunza and work with two girls who put up Instagram covers of songs that, are considered to just be content creators, right? It exists. That kind of element of music snobbery is the best way I can describe it, exists.
Yeah,
and so you giving them these opportunities, I'm not giving you an elevated status here, and I'm not saying this to stroke your ego, but there is definitely an element of creating opportunities for communities who have been starved of this.
Because how else do we create hope in this world? If we are unable to represent these communities, how else? And how else will they talk to everybody? How else do they express? If art and singing and music is their tool, and if they are unable to do it, that's sad, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that should be the norm. So for somebody like me, again, I come from a point of working with, I made my studio by telling my parents that I want to work with newer musicians. I want to make a studio in which I want to record people. And I wasn't talking about recording mainstream artists. I just wanted to make a simple studio. And the first album I recorded was Jal's Aadat.
Oh, wow.
Right? And just because I felt that it just felt great working with musicians who do not have an ego, who are just starting out, who are full of expression and emotion, and who are kind of on a mission to make an album and make music. Like, so they're not even thinking about if people will love it or not. They're just doing it, right, with all their hearts. So I made my first studio with that thought. And I work with younger people all the time, with newer musicians all the time. So for me, it is very normal to work with a Nurima or a Fahim or a Manu or an Anural or a Shegil. I love that. Or Hassan Rahim, he's big now.
Yeah.
But in the Coke Studio 14 beginning time, it's normal for me to go and, even in branded meetings, go and own it in a way that this is my country, this is my country's talent, and they are going to make a difference and they are going to make a global impact. I am with them, we are together, and it's going to happen. So I work with this belief.
I'm going to ask you a bit of a cheeky question now, because this is on a bit of a tangent for a second.
Sure.
But because you were part of making these musical, I don't even know what the right word is, timeless masterpieces, like you said, the Aadat album that you did. These are songs that have built careers, that have been used as inspiration by other artists. When you hear, and actually, I was going to actually mention Aadat earlier when you were talking about simpler melodies coming back, because it is a simpler melody.
Yeah.
When you hear songs made today that are bringing that back, do you ever sit back and think, I started this, I did this 20 years ago? And the song that comes to mind is actually, I don't know if you know the Sayara title track.
Yeah.
Which is very popular, very, very popular. And to me, it is a complete 2000s Pakistani Sufi rock song.
Absolutely, it is.
And I say specifically Pakistani because that is where that sound was kind of coming from
You're
to begin
right.
with. And yet, yes, it crossed borders and yes, it was everywhere.
Wow.
But that's why I was asking that. Like, do you ever sit back and think, like, been there, done that, you know? Like,
I'll tell you honestly, you know, we in Pakistan, we don't go through an educational music system. We haven't learned it, right? Our rebel has been our teacher. So when we are born, and, you know, we grow up, different influences, inspirations, and then we decide, okay, we want to do music. You're not going to find complete support for it, overwhelming support for it, no. But if you really want to do it and you're meant to do it, you're going to fight. So you become a very good kind of rebel. So when you rebel, you learn in a different way. You do not put yourself in a box, or you do not put what you do in a box as well. So there are no rules to how you are doing it. And when there are no rules to how you're doing it, that's how maybe Sufi rock comes into existence.
Yeah.
Or our brand of pop comes into existence. Even Nusrat Ali Khan was not your regular Qawwal. He kind of did that no other artist was, doing from Pakistan. He put Qawwali on the global map. He collaborated with so many people because he was doing it differently, right? Again, no rule book. Your Nazia Zuhaib, they did pop in a way which is still fresh. No rule book. Junoon, no rule book. Even if you see the 2000s, the Jal's time, Atif Aslam's time, the way it has shaped today's music as well, and even at that time, the subcontinent's music, you knew it. There's a change happening, right? So there is something in our rebel which makes us break the rules in a way that people embrace it.
And I think that is the perfect note to end this on, because Hamnava is that rebel right now.
Absolutely.
This is going to disrupt, and it's going to create a new love and passion for something that we know is embedded within our culture.
Absolutely.
And just needs to be brought to the forefront once again.
Yes.
Xulfi, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you
Same
so
here,
much
Haroon.
for your time.
Thank you.